You know how they say that time flies when you're having fun? Well, that also applies when you think you're about to be smoked. It didn't take long for them to break down the door, and the thing is, jumping out of the windows wasn't an option here. I tried opening a vent into the washroom, but they were already inside the apartment. I remember seeing Kane fish a pistol out of the kitchen cabinet before getting bodied by some behemoth of a man. This all happened in what felt like seconds. The last thing that I saw before I blacked out was the butt of a rifle coming towards my face. I awoke sometime later, face down on a dusty floor in a dim, empty room. My head was pounding. I wasn't restrained, but there was nowhere to go. There was one door leading out, and it was deadbolted. I turned my head to see Kane pacing on the other side. Look, I didn't lead them here. I tried to reason with him. He looked pissed. Oh, I don't doubt that, he responded. Not on purpose, at least. They know that I can't help them. They would have tried a while ago if I could. He followed up with a sigh. This is fucked. I turned away from him and started feeling around the walls. I was under the delusion that there would be some kind of secret way out, and a delusion it was. After my futile attempt at escape, I just sat down in a corner. There was no good ending to this, I thought. Kane seemed to read my mind because he chimed in. You know you can't tell them how to get there, right? He looked at me again. This time, his demeanor was dead serious. You can't let that thing loose over here. That's not an option. Initially, I was annoyed. He was asking me to take what was surely torture and then death. But then I thought about it. This was bigger than me, and there was no way out of it. The door suddenly swung open. About 5 people stepped in, all sporting those damn bags over their heads. 2 had shotguns. You're awake. Good, said the one at the front. I instantly recognized that voice. Was it really? He slipped it off, revealing a big, shit-eating grin. It was Jackson. It didn't have to be like this, you know. You could have just told me how to get there. I thought back to the conversation that we had at the diner. I clearly told him what I had entered at the prompt. Did that not work for him? But I put that thought to the back of my head. At that moment, I was nothing but angry. Like it would have mattered. You psycho fucks would have ruined the world regardless. He just sighed. Ruin? Look, I don't expect you to understand, only to cooperate. But this world, it isn't right. It was a mistake. So you just follow the orders of some crazy dead guy, huh? Kane laughed. You know, it sounds like you guys are the mistakes. One of the men walked up and whipped the shotgun barrel across his face. There was a terrible cracking sound as he fell to the floor, and he started coughing up blood. Why don't you guys just kill me? I can't help you. Wouldn't if I could anyway, he muttered as he sat up against a wall. Jackson chuckled. No, this is something we all need to see. The more people who stand witness, the better. It's the greatest salvation anybody could ask for. He was just bloviating nonsense at this point, and I didn't feel like arguing. There was no changing his mind. However, I had some questions, though. How did you find me, huh? It doesn't make any sense. He walked over to me and reached behind my ear. I felt a sharp pain at the back of my neck as he pulled out what looked like a tiny computer chip. Oh, so that's what that was. I just let out an exasperated sigh. Funny enough, this wasn't our doing, he said as he flicked it away. What the hell are you talking about? I spat at him. But then I thought about it. When those guys were shooting at me in the locker room, I swear that I felt something hit my neck. But in the moment, you just don't care. Jackson smiled as he saw the horror on my face. We can thank those guys for that. It's just a shame that they won't be here to see it. Everybody always resists. Only the lucky ones truly get it. I recalled Ben's message. A lot of groups are after this, but we're only afraid of one. Who were they? I asked him. Don't know, he replied. It never mattered anyways. I was reliving the whole journey in my head at this point, thinking about where I messed up. How'd you get to the terminal? You needed a keycard. Jackson pulled one out of his pocket. Oh yeah, I forgot. They killed everybody who had one. I was beyond frustrated at this point. Not even just at him. At this whole damn situation. This thing that you want to send over here, do you even know what it is? He paused for a second. A look of pure contemplation was plastered across his face. I'll tell you what Blake told me. It's not for us to know. We just don't belong here, and every second that we remain, the universe deteriorates. We need to correct this. You know, it's funny. These guys actually thought that they were after something good. Blind faith, huh? I retorted. You guys are pathetic. Jackson scrunched his nose at this. His expression contorted into one of pure rage. That's enough. He gestured at the two men standing beside him, and they started dragging me out of this room. As we left, I could hear Kane screaming at me, screaming that I couldn't give in. I tried wrestling the shotgun away, but it was a pathetic attempt. There was nothing that I could do. They tossed me into another room. This time, it was larger. I guess the rest of the cult was also in there, because about 15 people stood lining the perimeter of the room, all with those bags over their heads. There was also a computer set up in the middle, wires running everywhere. They forced me into a chair in front of it and strapped my legs down. Go ahead. Jackson's voice echoed from behind me. Everybody's waiting. I refused at first. I really did. But I guess that's what they were expecting. First came the waterboarding. I don't know if you've experienced it, but it definitely wasn't pleasant. However, it also wasn't enough. What came next almost was, however. One of the men took out a butterfly knife and started slicing my pinky toe off, slowly. He did this over the course of what felt like an hour. And then came the salt. It was pain that transcended anything I've ever felt before. And he finally finished up by cauterizing it. You know, you have 9 more. Jackson's voice oozed from behind me. You can end this any time. You can die the way that you're supposed to. Hearing him say that just gave me more motivation to tell him to fuck off. But I'll admit it, I was nearing my breaking point. The next part was excruciating, beyond belief. They started scraping the skin off of my shoulder. It wouldn't have been that bad if it wasn't for the boiling water that they poured on it afterwards.
Okay, alright.
I finally blurted out. They stopped and started applying some cream to the burn. It was pure ecstasy. I heard Jackson breathe out what sounded like a sigh of relief. Smart guy. This was all a ruse, however. I just needed a break for a second. My plan was to get to the prompt and then flip the damn table over. If they were going to torture me to death, I was going out with a bang. The human spirit is hard to break. A billion thoughts ran through my head as I went through the whole fucking process again. Memories of family and friends. Better times. I solved those riddles and encryptions until that damn question popped up again. What do you seek? I was about to enact my spree of destruction when I noticed something. Something small in the corner of the monitor. It was hard to read, so I had to squint. It was text. Just 2 words, in English this time. Don't worry. I just stared at it for a second. What the hell was that supposed to mean? And that's when I came to a realization. I recalled what Ben had told Kane. It was only Blake sitting at the computer in the basement. He was the only one watching. Everybody who saw this thing went insane and killed themselves. Somehow, the AI also knew this, and I smiled to myself. I felt somebody poke at my back. Don't tell me you've changed your mind. You know, we can just change it back again. Jackson's voice rang out. Don't worry, I responded. I answered the prompt question, what also seeks me. The familiar list of links soon appeared in front of me. I started scrolling down, clicking on various links until a familiar question appeared in the corner. I clicked yes, and just like that, there they were, the 4 links. I leaned back in the chair. Well, there it is. The first link's the one you're looking for. I watched as they all gathered around me. Is this the first time you're going to see it? I asked. I could see Jackson nodding out of the corner of my vision. You know, Blake did make one mistake. He thought that we weren't ready, but we were always ready. They unstrapped me from the chair, and Jackson put his hand on my shoulder in appreciation. You don't know this, but you just did something good. Spare me, I responded. Is Ben still alive? I needed to know. Jackson nodded. Well, where is he? Why does it matter at this point? I just want to tell him to brace himself. I owe him that at least. Jackson sighed. He took out a piece of paper with an address and postal code scribbled onto it and handed it to me. Good luck with that. He gestured to a couple of armed members. Make sure to follow him out, in case he lied again. They obliged. I could barely hold in my grin as they walked me out, and they closed the door behind me and trained their shotguns on me. There was only one thing that I could do at this point. I just waited, listening intently. There was a few muffled voices before silence, and I started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then came the screams. Even though I was expecting it, I still flinched. Kane was right. Those sounds should not have come out of a human being. The 2 guys guarding me flipped their shit. One of them ran inside and the other stumbled onto his feet. He was looking back and forth between me and the room, so I disarmed him easily and shot at his kneecaps. I guess he hit his head hard on the floor because he just went limp. And that's when the cacophony of gunshots started ringing out from inside the room. It lasted for about 10 seconds and was followed by silence. With a shotgun in hand, I walked inside. Bodies were lying haphazardly scattered around the room. Pieces of the burlap sacks they were wearing were now stuck to the blood-stained walls. The monitor was face down on the floor, shards of screen everywhere. There was only one squirming figure left. Jackson. I guess that he really was dedicated to this. He was muttering something incomprehensible as he snaked his way towards a stray pistol. I thought about finishing the job for him, but that'd just be putting him out of his misery. Instead, I went around the room and took the clips and the shells out of every weapon. He gave me one last look before I just left. His skin was paler than snow, arms and legs trembling, expression of a mix of shock, dismay, and confusion. It looked as if he was pleading for something. I just flipped him off and just closed the door behind me. This is what he wanted, wasn't it? I walked down the room where Kane still was. I'd picked up the keys from one of the bodies. At this point, the cream on my shoulder as well as the adrenaline was wearing off. A wave of pain hit me at once. I stumbled a bit before I got to the door and unlocked it. Kane jumped when I walked in. He seemed relieved at first, and then horrified. Did you... The words faltered out of his mouth, and I just shook my head. He exhaled in solace. He wanted to take a quick peek inside the room before we left, just to make sure. And Jackson was still in there, twitching violently in the corner, facing away from us. And that was the last that I ever saw of him. Well, this'll be a pleasant surprise for somebody, Kane said before closing the door. We got out of there after that. Turns out that we were in the basement of some abandoned factory outside city limits. We hitchhiked back into town. We got back to Kane's apartment, where he decided to buy me a plane ticket back. "It's the least I can do," he stated. "So, where to? You said that you were from Delaware?" I looked down at the address in my hand. No, actually, I need to go to Vegas first." Kane chuckled. "Drinking away this whole experience, huh? I guess it's understandable." He started booking the ticket. "So, do you want to see him?" I asked as he was finishing up. He raised his eyebrow. "See who?" "Ben." He paused, staring at the ground for a second before answering. No, not really." He looked back at me. "Just tell him that I wish him the best, though, and tell him to be careful." He said it in such a somber tone. I could tell that he just wanted to be done with this whole thing, to never think about it again. And seeing Ben wouldn't help that. He gave me some cab money before we exchanged goodbyes, but I had to ask him one last thing before leaving. "Hey, do you think that this is the end of them?" He thought about it for a second before answering. It has to be, right?" I started heading for the airport. I gotta say, it feels weird walking around with a toe missing. I'll get used to it though, I suppose. Once in Vegas, I took another cab to the address. It was a rundown house in the middle of a sketchy neighborhood. I hurried in and started searching. I must have looked through the entire place before hearing a soft groaning from the basement. I hurried down there and started yelling Ben's name. The groaning got louder too. It was coming from a room in the back. I tried the handle. It was locked, so I eventually just kicked it down. Dust blasted me in the face as I walked inside. Ben was lying there on a dirty mattress in the middle of the room, and he had bruises all over his face and looked like he hadn't eaten in days. There were packets of instant ramen strewn all over the floor. He turned over to look at me and smiled. "I knew you could do it," he uttered out. There was a small television set smashed onto the floor. "Yeah, they wanted me to watch it on the news." He grinned again. Like hell I was. I picked him up and let him out of there. "It's all right. I'm good," he said as he stabilized himself. Once we were outside, he took a deep breath. "You know, I don't even want to think about what I caught in that dusty-ass room." I laughed at this. This shit was finally over, I thought. Ben got himself checked and patched up, and I also got my shoulder looked at. We ended up hitting the slots, going to a seafood buffet and karaoke bar after. It was the best time that I've had in a while, in fact. I was getting ready to leave the morning after, and Ben said that he had work to catch up on. Truth be told, so did I. I mean, it's not like my job would be waiting for me when I got back. "You know, you never actually told me who you worked for or what you do," I said to him as we were getting ready to leave the hotel. He chuckled. "Yeah, well, that was on purpose." Come on, after all this and you're still keeping it a secret?" I gave him a casual nudge. "After all this and you still want to know more?" He pushed back. It was my turn to chuckle. Touché, I thought. The cab ride to McCarran was quiet, and so was the walk to the terminal. I was headed back to Delaware, and he was going to South Korea. He finally spoke up about 2 minutes before his boarding call. "You know, I like to think that I do my best to try and protect the world from the strange shit that dwells within it. To try and secure the stuff out there that humanity should never see. To put them away in containment forever." He slapped my back before getting up to leave. "Keep in touch, yeah? You know how to find me." And just like that, he was gone. I waited about 30 more minutes before my flight was ready to go. I slept like a baby the whole time I was in the air, and when I actually got to my house, there was police tape surrounding it. I knocked on my neighbor's door to ask her what had happened. I mean, I already knew, but I had to feign some kind of ignorance. She seemed surprised when she opened for me. Apparently, she saw 2 men entering my house and called the cops that night. I went to the diner. "Everybody's been looking for you. Where the hell did you go?" Sightseeing," I answered. "Did they catch them?" No," she responded. "But they found these weird-ass cards all around your house. It said like FTLOG on the back or something. Who the hell were those nutcases?" I chuckled to myself and thanked her. After explaining the situation to the cops and giving a statement, I was finally back at square one. Normalcy. I found a new job soon after and settled back into a routine. It was over, huh? But even though I try not to think about it anymore, it seems like a daunting task. Sometimes I lie in bed, just staring at the ceiling, and try to picture what I saw in my head. I still had too many questions. There were 3 other links, weren't there? What the hell were those? I tried to tell myself that I didn't care, but that was a lie. I think about what Kane said to me on a daily basis. You and Blake are the exceptions. Maybe it means something. Maybe it did mean something. I feel that sight calling to me constantly. I know that sounds strange, but it's like I can sense it. Those links are just waiting to be seen by somebody. By me. The AI still tries to communicate as well. I've been getting small messages on the corner of my screen, even when I browse the surface web now. Are you satisfied, is what they say. And you know what? That's a good question. Was I?